Many of us have or will experience breakups in our lives. We meet someone, we fall in love, we have an amazing time, and then it comes to an end. We are devastated. We lock ourselves up in our rooms, listen to sad music, eat our favorite comfort foods, and shut the world out. Many of us will make some bad decisions during this time. And hopefully, we have our friends to lean on to help get us through it and eventually to tell us when to get over it and get ourselves together. But today, that's not what we're here to talk about. Today, we are here to talk about friendship breakups and why we aren't trained to go through them the same way that we are taught about romantic breakups, despite the fact that most of us will experience these far more. Hello, and welcome to the You Can Call Me Karen pod, where we will discuss events and experiences from the world around us in an effort to highlight our similarities rather than our differences. I am Karen Horwitz, and am joined by my two dearest friends, Stephanie J. and Monica Rosa. It's really hard for me to say Monica. You can say hi.
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 There it
I don't know
is.
why that's hard for you. I don't know why that's hard for you.
Well, because it's Manny. Anyways.
Aw. Oh, I see.
Before we get into our topic of the week, let's hear from my lovely co-hosts on their latest Who You Calling Karen stories. Let's start with Manny, because I hear Steph's got a spicy one.
That Who You Calling Karen was really good, Karen.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm
I've been
seeing
really
improvements.
practicing. I feel like I
Really
haven't
proud
said
of
it cool yet.
Who You Calling Karen? Like, I like that one. Like
Work.
do that one like more.
Okay, I'll keep working on it.
Work.
So speaking of friendship breakups, my Karen story of the week, just to give a little bit of context to our listeners, it is August 7th. We are wrapping up the Olympics, and my co-hosts don't have TikTok, which I kind of hate because I see all these things and I want to inform them of that. But I've been going down a rabbit hole on TikTok with these Olympic stories, and my Who You Calling Karen is about Michaela Skinner. Do you guys know who that is?
Oh,
Yup.
yeah.
Yup.
So Michaela Skinner had the audacity to come after the GOAT and her teammates at the
What was
Olympics.
she thinking?
I have no idea. She wasn't thinking. What's the line from Sandlot? If you were thinking, you wouldn't have thought that. Like, are you for real? So anyway, she got on because everybody, and to quote Simone, not everybody needs a mic and a platform, but everybody thinks they can have a mic and a platform on TikTok.
Mhm.
And she got on TikTok and started running her mouth about how these gymnasts don't have talent. But the thing that she said that really infuriated most people is she said, since it became a safe sport. Did you guys know about this part?
She was referring to the organization called Safe Sport. Safe
Yes.
Sport is a
Yeah.
part of whatever. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
so she means like you're better when you're molested? Is that what she's
Yes.
getting at?
And
Yes.
Cool.
and
Yeah.
berated and like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think that they've been working to kind of get rid of some of that.
Right. So
Oh
people
my
were
God.
furious about that because obviously molestation is bad, and it was it was a weed in in the gymnast community. You know, it still is. That's what gymnast. That's like the big part of the trauma that gymnasts go through. You know, I haven't watched Simone Biles'
Oh, I have.
documentary yet, but
Yeah, it's good.
I'm really interested in seeing it. But anyway, so and she's kept on going a little bit, and when the U.S. gymnastics team won gold, Simone Biles clapped back, and said in her comments, like, lack of talent, right? Work ethic, lack of depth, whatever, which was really funny. And so then people started coming after Michaela Skinner. And just recently, I think it was yesterday, she posted her white tears on TikTok asking Simone Biles to stop this vitriol from the internet, to use her platform to stop people from coming out. And I quote, this was one of her, I don't know if it was on Threads or X, but it was, do people care how I feel? These comments are vile. Oh my gosh. So anyway, the video was just her like asking and pleading with Simone. And she's just, I don't know, my Karen for the week, because that is a move, right? Of like, I'm going to incite this, like, this verbal violence on you, then I'm going to get held accountable for that. And then I'm going to ask the Black woman in this situation to carry the emotional baggage and the emotional weight to make it right, instead of atoning for my sins. So anyway, Michaela Skinner.
Did she acknowledge
GTFO.
that? Did she acknowledge that, like, she was wrong?
She issued an apology.
I think she also
after
took down some of the videos.
She took down the videos too. They were on YouTube, and so Manny, it's so funny because I literally just read an article about her new video, because I think her new video is on Instagram too, like the one where she's pleading with Simone to call off like her fans to stop like harassing her, like Simone is in charge of them or something. And but she did issue an apology because she said I wasn't intending to whatever. I mean, she was though.
Right.
So she issued an apology, but it doesn't matter. Like, you can't unring the bell. Like, she made comments that were like disrespectful. And
this is like it's so frustrating. Like, the apology thing, like, in our society, people are so proud they can't just apologize and take responsibility for their actions.
Right.
It's always a qualification. Like, I wasn't intending to say X, Y, and Z, but you said it.
You said
so
it.
I don't. You can't take away, like, the way that
It's
we
also
received
not
it.
an apology when you play victim, right?
Right.
Like,
If you're sorry, just say you're sorry.
just say
Take
you're sorry. Like,
responsibility for your actions.
I'm sorry that you didn't realize how big Simone Biles was. She doesn't have fans. The whole world is behind this woman, and you bumped your head momentarily for 2 seconds and forgot that, right? Because you're sitting at home and not at the Olympics. That's what that was about, right?
Yeah.
And so, like,
oh my gosh,
this is not, Simone Biles doesn't have fans. The whole, have you seen the celebrities that are there to watch her?
And also, like, it's not fandom. It's pure awe and appreciation of her raw talent. Like, she is, and she is just incredible. There's no arguing with it. Hands down, the best gymnast ever. And, by the way, operating in a, quote, safe sport now. I realize she has her baggage, but, maybe being joyful and happy and loving your sport also makes you better, because she's also the oldest gymnast to like achieve her accolades. So fascinating.
And it brings me to a point of, like, I think, Steph, you talked about this a little bit, like the angry Black woman trope of, like, how did you expect for her to respond to that? You disrespected her after she worked so hard to get back into the Olympics and to get to a space where she feels physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally healthy enough to compete. Right? We all saw her have to go through that very public disappointment at the Olympics the last time she was there. How did you expect for her to respond to your comment?
And the truth is, she responded pretty,
in the
like,
most graceful way.
It's pretty tight. Like, it was, like, little tweets,
subtle.
like they were subtle. Like, you knew what she was talking about, but she didn't call her by name. She didn't, you know what I mean? She was just like,
she was as classy as you can be when someone puts you on blast.
So
yeah.
as they
Yeah.
kept saying, F around and find out.
F around and find out.
F
And
around
I
and
guess
find out.
Michaela found out.
She found out.
I love how every week now you are putting somebody on blast on this show. I can't remember who it was the last time, but I was like, oh my gosh, we're calling people by names. Okay, here we are.
Well, it's in the news. I just read about
It
it.
is in the news. It is in the news. Steph, yes, let's get to
Are
the
you ready for my story?
spicy Karen. I am ready.
Okay. So I am a dance teacher, and we so we have,
In case you guys forgot.
in case you forgot, and before like the school year starts, we, like, all of us who teach dance, we do our own choreography for most of our groups, and then our studio also really likes to bring in really well-known and great guest choreographers. And so, but we do our in-house choreography, and we do it kind of like a camp. So we choreograph the dances, and then we have 2 separate weeks of camp. The kids come in, we teach them the dances that we came up with. And it's really hard work to choreograph a whole routine. You come into the studio and you have, 20 or 30 or 10 or 15 eager eyes looking at you, and these families are excited. They pay a lot of money to dance, and this is the routine that you're using all year long. Okay, so there's a lot of pressure. Like, you walk in and this is their dance, like, that they are going to rehearse every week, and you put your heart and soul into it, and you come up with costumes. And so we draw pictures of our costumes, we hang them on the door, we reveal the music. It's really a big deal. So, like, when I go, you guys know I go in my choreography cave, it's because there's a lot of pressure. So my Karen story doesn't involve me personally, because truthfully, if this happened to me, I would be in jail right now. My coworker told me yesterday that after day 1 of camp, so this is the first day, she plays the music. She starts teaching the dance. She tells them their concept and all that stuff. And then the next day, we have them for an hour and 15 minutes for each dance. She gets an email from 2 different parents of kids in the group saying that they don't want their kid dancing to the song that she chose for the group. The song is called My Pumps, and it is sung by a drag queen.
Oh.
And so the song, they said that I don't want my daughter dancing to a song sung by a drag queen. So either change the song or I'm pulling my kid.
Whoa.
Wow.
There are so many things wrong with that. First of all, the disrespect to my coworker who poured her heart into. P.S. She had 16 groups to choreograph. 16 groups.
Wow.
Okay, so she was in camp 1 and camp 2. She worked her tail off, and thinking about how I pour, like, you think about each kid. Where should they stand? What are their special skills? Like, and she came up with this. She chose a song that is, yes, the detail, the effort. The song is sassy. It's empowering. It's good for that age group. It basically says, like, I open my closet and what do I wear? And I put on my shoes and I stomp. It's very, it's adorable. And it's perfect for that group, to give them confidence, to give them swag and all those things that you're trying to work on. And so I know what went into it. So just that aside. But how are we going to decide about to cuss? How are we going to decide what is like, we're going to diss a song because of the artist, because the artist happens to be a drag queen? So then are we allowed to dance to people who are gay? Are we allowed to use artists who are like, why are we going to start to decide that the song is inappropriate because of who sang the song? Like, if that exact same song was sung by just a cis het woman, then is it appropriate? Are you kidding me? Is this where we're going to go? Is this the road we're going to go down? Because I'm about to go off.
Not to mention, like, okay, politics aside, right? We are talking about art. right? So like when your like opinions start to infiltrate the art and you try to censor art, it is really so maddening from
Mm-hmm.
a creator's perspective because
Mhm.
art cannot be censored. It's art.
Yes. And what kills me is like, if you're bothered by drag queens for whatever reason you might be, the group is all girls in a dance costume. So it's not going to be presented as drag queens. It's not possible when it's all girls dancing. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
that's probably not even the angle. She heard the song and the lyrics and the energy and the rhythm and said this would be fun to do for kids. And she would like, you
Mm-hmm.
turned it political, moms.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sorry, so
so
How did they
I'm
even find
totally
out that
jumping to. Oh,
that
go
it
ahead.
was, sorry, I just have a question. How did they even find out that like how did that even occur?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming when the kids came home and they were like, they're like, Mom, we're dancing to a song. It's called My Pumps, like blah, blah, blah. And she's like, My Pumps. And she probably typed it because I typed it into, I knew the song, but I was telling my husband about it last night. And so I typed it into Spotify and the song comes up and you see a
Oh,
picture
okay.
of the singer. Like, I mean, it's clearly a drag queen, but
Yeah. Right.
so
Mm-hmm.
Right.
what? And
So what?
so what? um and it's funny because I played the song for my husband and he was like, and I was like, what do you think of this song? And he was like, I think I know where the story's going. Is that a drag queen? And I was like, yeah. And obviously the community we live in, he's not surprised that that would even happen. And he was like, oh my
Mm,
God. So anyway,
wow.
if that
So
had
are the
been
girls
me,
pulled from the routine? See you later. It's
no.
Yeah.
easier to do an
Yeah. So
affirmation than it is to change the song.
exactly. Yeah. This is where I was going. I was like, what happened? Did they accommodate her? Because then we're just empowering the Karen. You're nodding.
Oh no.
My coworker changed the song. So day
Mm.
two. Now, she talked to our directors about it, and I'm assuming, knowing my directors, that they were like, "It's up to you, but here are some things to consider," kind of a thing. And um, she did change the song. She did not change the choreography though, and she was like, so she literally just lifted the steps and put it to a
Oh.
different song. And she did kind of have to change like the intro, like she used the same steps but like there was like some lip syncing that like the girl was going to do and she kind of
Mm.
like tweaked it here and there, but she said she's like, I'm not doing a 17th dance. And so I was proud of her for that. And she was like, what was originally a very thought out idea is now just a dance, like
Yep.
now you're
Oh.
just getting a song, you're getting some steps to a song as opposed to a
Yep.
concept that I worked on, and
Yep.
that's on you, kind of a
And
thing.
that's what they want.
And that's what
So
they
I
want.
know
Yeah.
we're getting like a little bit over time here and we want to
Yes,
move
I'm
into the
sorry.
episode, but like
Mhm,
I'm really curious. Steph, you will have to keep us updated on
mhm.
how the directors handle this because this is going to be a
Yeah,
phenomenon that is not going to go away.
I know.
And they
And
need to nip that in the butt
yeah,
because we
I
see
Mm-hmm.
it in the classroom, we see it in
mhm,
education, and now they're
mhm,
trying to do it in sports and
mhm,
extracurriculars. And it's like your ideology.
mhm,
You don't want our ideology in spaces. We don't want your ideology in spaces. Like, how
mhm.
are we
Mm-hmm.
going to
Yeah.
coexist?
I'm
What
pretty
are the
anxious about it,
boundaries here?
to be honest, because I
I would be
know
anxious too.
a couple of I know that my two directors, the owners of the studio, one more so than the other, we do not share um political beliefs and perspectives. And and I am an educator. I have had students who came in with that Fox News letter that says you're not allowed to talk about SEL, you're not allowed to talk about pronouns. Like, I've literally gotten a letter saying that I'm not allowed to talk about those things to their student. There's platforms like, so I'm on, this is like over the top for me because it's like, and so like I need to calm down first, but I do think I want to bring it up as an issue,
Mm-hmm.
because I can't, I'm not going to participate in that. So
And where, yeah, like then where do you draw the
You draw
line?
the line.
that's what I'm
If you
saying. Like,
Where do
accommodate
you draw the
that,
line?
then
Yeah.
mhm,
And what happens if you have a parent who feels the other way? You know what
the
I
other
mean?
way,
Like,
like, what if, exactly, like, it's like I feel like we should be celebrating those who celebrate inclusivity. And I think that we should be a studio that stands for inclusivity. And so, if you are a family that can't have artists who are, we can't play music by artists who don't look like you or talk like you, then you aren't welcome here, because we are a community that celebrates diversity, period.
So
And
interesting.
so,
They didn't feel this way when Travis Wall choreographed all their routines.
right, because you know what, that's a really good point. And they went down swinging for him, because
Yep.
he
Of course
now
they did.
he
Because
comes with a
he comes with a lot.
he
But I
comes
gotta
with a
tell
little bit
you,
of baggage, but he's incredible and everybody knows who he is. And so now he's human, right? And
true,
now they understand that
true.
he's
I will
not a
say, like,
perfect human.
no, you're right. You're right. And I think you might be making a point that it's because it's Travis Wall, but we have had a long-standing relationship with him, and we've known him since he was a teenager. So like when all those things happened, there was context to stand up for him. And
Exactly. Well, this is my point, is like when
No,
we
I'm
break
not
down the
talking about.
barriers and know
okay,
each
I just
other,
wanted to like
that
make sure, like it was
Yeah.
more like we know
No,
him, the
I'm not
person.
talking about
Okay.
the other stuff. I'm talking about his sexual orientation.
yes, yes. But I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like the fact that this studio, that the parents, that the students, they all know him. He's a human.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
like him.
Mm-hmm.
He's a person for them,
Mm-hmm.
so
Right.
they can forgive the things that they, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
see
but as far
as
as boundaries
flaws.
and the litmus test is involved, you
Yes.
can't pick and choose when the artist personal life is
Exactly.
going to be separate from the
Separate.
art.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I'm
No.
glad that you
And
brought that up,
for,
because I do want to bring this up as like an issue I take with, because I don't want to see down the road families be able to tell me, what music, because I feel like there's a lot of thought a teacher makes into picking
Mhm.
music, finding clean versions. You should see the gymnastics I do with hip hop music, changing
Oh, I can
entire
imagine.
verses. I literally take lines from multiple verses and make a new verse,
Right.
um, to make sure that it's appropriate.
yeah.
So, so
And
I
then now, if you have to consider someone's sexual
sexual
orientation
orientation or
or
where
the
they're
thing
from or
they posted in
did
high school, like,
Right.
I can't. I won't live
no.
my life like that.
It's too much. Yep. Yeah.
Hmm.
Oof. Wow, that was a good one.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I feel like that's a whole topic
that's a whole
for,
Yeah.
topic. Hmm.
Are we doing this friendship episode?
yeah, screw this episode. We're just pivoting. No, I'm not prepared for that, you guys. But we will add that to the docket for sure.
Hmm.
Um, all right. So I guess I will just awkwardly pivot into the topic of the week. So, as I mentioned at the top, we are here to talk about friendship breakups. We have all experienced them, but we've never really been taught to deal with them and to properly process and grieve them. I know I've reflected on this over the years, and I've reflected on it with both of you. We've certainly both supported, or all supported each other as we've gone through these breakups. And um, sometimes, as I reflect on friendship breakups, right, sometimes these are epic. These are emotional blowups, yelling, fighting, never speaking again, rigidly sticking on your side of the story. Sometimes they quietly fade to black, which is mostly how I deal with friendship breakups. But either way, it leaves both parties confused, completely unsettled about what happened. And we're not really taught any tools of how to handle these things. We see countless situations in the media of romantic breakups, a million different ways of how people emotionally process these things, but it's really rare to see the depiction of a permanent, or even semi-permanent friendship breakup and how people handle these things. So today, I want to dive into maybe why we don't explore these breakups more publicly, but also how we can help our listeners think through these times so we're all better prepared for when these inevitably happen. All right, so let's dive into friendship breakups.
Party.
So exciting. As I was preparing for this episode, I was flashing back to all of the breakups I've had over the years. And in that reflection, I realized just how many I have been through with friends. I started to wonder maybe I'm doing this friend thing a little bit wrong. But
Fucking Karen.
there it is. So, thanks to an article I read by Catherine Waters, which we will link in the show notes, I think that's part of the process of just trying to understand and begin to grieve some of these losses is self-reflection, maybe a little bit of self-doubt, but we're not really taught to go through that process, and so it leaves all of these lingering kind of uncomfortable feelings. Friendship breakups, I think, are particularly hard because it's not often for a clear reason, and there's not always a definitive end. So for me, I tend to be pretty non-confrontational. I know that's hard to believe, and so when I hit a stage of my friendships where things are coming to an end for whatever reason, I have the tendency to be avoidant and just like let that relationship quietly fizzle. I become a little bit non-responsive. I don't return messages, things like that. And
Oh, ghost.
yeah, to use the kiddos language, I totally ghost people, which is not cool, I realize, but that's just, that's just how I've handled these things over the years. So even if I'm the one driving that, I still end up feeling like a little bit of ambiguity of that breakup. What I'm left with, like this unsettled feeling of like why we got to where we did. And it leads me to a lot of confusion about just what happened and why. And what I'm realizing in doing this research is that increases the timeline for the grieving period. It can cause feelings of insecurity, questioning of self-worth, all of these things. So I'm curious in your experiences whether that resonates, but also why do you think we don't prepare ourselves better for these types of breakups versus romantic breakups?
I'm wondering if do you guys remember when we were kids, like there were those necklaces like best friends forever? And, like,
Yeah.
The
like
two
one
pieces,
the
yeah.
two pieces that like
Yes.
connect. And it's like
Oh my gosh.
I feel like there really should be more conversation about the fact that not a whole lot of friendships do last forever. So why aren't we
Mm-hmm.
prepared for the fact that um, that's probably inevitable. Like you're not going to necessarily be friends with the kid you met on the playground um, when you were
Yeah.
7. Um, I don't know where I was going with
I
that.
think I think it's interesting. I didn't think about that as I was preparing for this, but it's interesting that we teach our kids from like a super young age to
Mhm.
find your best friend forever.
Forever.
Like we are setting really bad expectations
Yeah.
here.
And maybe
Yeah.
that's where the insecurity, the sadness, the grief comes from, because there's this like language around friends that we're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be friends for the rest of our lives. And maybe if maybe it's not preparing for breakups, but realizing that friendships can oftentimes serve more of a season and
Mm-hmm.
in your life, and more, and not necessarily, you know um you know so I don't know if it's like preparing for the breakup or preparing for the fact that friendships ebb and flow with your life,
Mm-hmm.
with your life experiences, where you are, where you live, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point of like not just being able to process these emotionally, but also setting better expectations up front so that the grief isn't quite the grief isn't on your ability to be a friend. The grief is just the loss of that relationship. So it kind of, it takes away at least one element of the thing that you're processing when a friendship does come to an end.
I think it's also like, I think this is conversation about intensity and frequency, right? So I have friendships that are intense, and I have friendships that are less intense. I have relationships with friends that I frequent often, and I have relationship with friends that I don't frequent often, right? So I'm thinking about my best friend from 7th grade. Is she not my friend because the relationship isn't intense or as frequent as it was in 7th grade? If someone was like, do you know, I'm not going to put her name out there, but do you know this person? I would respond, yes, she's my friend, right? So it's like, it's kind of like, I think even the concept of friendship is like so undefined, because it's like, what is that person to me now if not a friend, even though the intensity and the frequency of our communication isn't what it was in 7th or 8th grade, you know?
That's the thought that I was having when I was kind of, reading over the notes and like kind of thinking about friendship breakups. And I was thinking about it and like, to me, like to your point, Nini, if we're no longer as intense or like as we were in middle school or high school, um, but we were truly ever friends, then if time has elapsed and we haven't spoken in a while, then you'll always be my friend, kind of a thing. Like literally, like if somebody who I haven't spoken to in a long time, but we were actually truly friends. Because that's where I was like, when we say friendship breakups, we're talking about true friends that like you were very close and you no longer are friends. Are we talking about people who like are in your circle? And so there's people who I haven't spoken to in years, but I know if I called them today, they would A, be happy to hear me, B, if I needed something, would do anything for me, and vice versa. Like if someone who I haven't spoken to, who I was actually truly friends with, called me today, even though we haven't spoken in forever, I got them, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
No,
are we broken up?
No, I think of breakups as a
conflict,
definitive end. Yeah, that something. I think I said earlier that there's not a definitive end, but I think I think it's okay. So let me reflect on a few as examples. But when I was young, I feel like I've talked about this on an earlier episode. When I was young, I had this best friend forever. That my mom and her mom had done this like mom and tots class and met each other, and they got along. And so then me and her daughter, we were really good friends for a good portion of our childhood until about, I want to say, like 5th or 6th grade. And I'm going to get the details wrong, but essentially, like, I started making good friends with other people, and she did the same. And we just kind of went in opposite paths. And I think there was a point in, we probably had a conversation at school or something about like me. I was a little bit of a jerk probably, and said like, yeah, I'm going to hang out with these other people. And her mom called my mom like that night to
oh yes, I remember
to
you talking about
try
that.
to like like suggesting that they needed to remedy our friendship.
Yeah.
And my mom was basically like, I'm not meddling in my daughter's friendship. Like, this is a decision she needs to make, and she needs to learn through this process, which in hindsight, and again, I think I've shared this story, but forgive me for that. But like, pretty cool of my mom to be like, yeah, my daughter's got to figure this one out. This is kind of how life is.
Yeah, it's natural.
But anyways, so that friendship really did come to an end. I mean, we went to school together through high school. And interestingly, our lives have come, full circle, and we've exchanged some messages over the years on Facebook. And I keep up with like what she's doing, and maybe vice versa. I don't really post much, but so yeah, so we've become cordial over the years. But it was a very clear, like, we are no longer friends. That was made clear at a certain point. And so to me, that's like one example of like, we were friends one day and we like made a decision to not be friends going forward. When you're young, it's probably a little bit more clear because you see each other in school every day and you're playing on the playground. And so there's like a clear change when you're not doing those things together anymore.
Yeah.
And when you get older, I think the ambiguity becomes greater and greater. So yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that's what I
I've
was
gone
like.
through a lot of those over the years.
As you were talking, I was kind of thinking about that of like age. Like I listed down some of my like friendship breakups, but I'm trying to think of the ones that came later in life, right? It's almost like, again, paralleling this like romantic relationship, right? Like, were my boyfriends in seventh grade like really my boyfriends? You know what I mean? Like, were my boyfriends in high school, right? Like, it's kind of the same idea, right? But as I got older and I started to learn more and my heart started to expand, um, the pain of breaking up with someone got deeper and the wound
Mm-hmm.
started to like really hurt. So I'm trying to think of like, and posing to like you two of like the most recent friendship breakup that you had. Has it been in your 30s? Like, or was it during this time
Mm-hmm.
where we were simultaneously like just like figuring out who we were? That's like, I love that second article that you posted. I think or you sent to us, and we'll put it in the comment notes or comment.
Mm-hmm.
What am I saying?
The show
Show
notes.
notes.
Yeah.
In the show notes. But the anatomy of friend breakups. When is reconciliation good? But I loved this line where she said, "And what kind of company would I keep if I was still acting like an unmedicated 25-year-old?" It's
Mm-hmm.
like, so like that, like the behavior of my friends in their 20s. Like, I think I allow more grace for the like BS that we put each other through because we were in our 20s.
Mm-hmm.
As I get into my 30s, I have a little bit more boundaries, or I don't know, I have a little bit more, call it rules, about like people in my orbit. But
Mm.
I'm thinking about this from the perspective of a breakup. The last time I had a breakup, I don't know if it was in the past decade or so, because um and is that, to answer your question, I guess, Karen, of like, why don't we talk more about these breakups? Is it because from youth to about your 20s, it is all about like kind of finding your identity and stuff. And that is where it's more of a natural rhythm
Yeah.
to like go in and out of these relationships.
Mm-hmm. Like, so are you saying, because like I started to nod my head vigorously because I thought I was, are you saying that like the frequency of breakups dissipates as we get older because we are more intentional about who's in our circle, whereas like relationships end more often when you're young because you're kind of feeling it out? Because like that helps me a
Mm-hmm.
lot, because I was
Yeah.
like, I really
Me
can't think
too.
of a friend breakup. I honestly have seen more re, re like
Rekindling.
reinstatement
Yeah.
of
Mm-hmm.
friendships um since I've passed 30, where I'm reconnecting with people who I hadn't seen in a long time, and maybe they left a big imprint on my heart, and I'm connecting with them again.
Yeah.
But I can't think of a time recently in the past 10 years, because I'm 40 now, that I've like lost friends or
Well,
ended friendships.
it is interesting. This is not something I had considered in preparing for this, but I really like that take, because one of the articles, the writer is a therapist or psychologist. Sorry if I'm getting those terms wrong. And talks about like the development of your brain, and basically it's well into your 20s before your brain is like fully developed, whatever that
Mhm.
means. I'm not a doctor. But
I think you're right on that.
but I do think that is an interesting observation, Manny, because I would, in a lot of cases, you're in and out of both romantic and friendships, friend relationships, well into your 20s. And and yeah, it's not as recent of a phenomenon, like for me, certainly in my adulthood. But I will say I am much more selective with who I choose to give my time to, and um, and who I choose to call a friend. Whereas when you're young, it's like I spent an afternoon with this person; they are my friend.
My friend.
Yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes.
And now I'm like, I don't know. We've been on 3 dates and I'm still on the fence about this person. You know? By date, I mean like had coffee.
Yeah, yeah,
Friend
yeah,
date.
Friend date,
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
I
Yeah, so
think
that
about
is an
that a lot
interesting take.
because being a teacher, I work with a lot of people close to my age, especially recently starting to have similar like family like experiences. So like our kids are like the same age and we're starting to bond more as parents as I'm headed into year 10. When I was first starting to teach, there were coworkers, and same thing. Like we're all the same age, and we had similar life experiences. But I was really hesitant to call them friends. And I started teaching in my 30s, and they all were like, "We're friends," and I'm like, Steve and I make
I'm
that sound a lot.
busy.
We're like, "Oh, are we friends?" Because like, would I trust you with, personal information? And I literally, it's like I'm auditioning people to like, who can I trust? And hearing how they talked about people and how they like, I heard this and the gossip, I'm like, boop, nope, you're not going to be my friend because if I tell you something personal about me, another circle is going to hear about my business. So, and I feel like there's a
Yeah, and
lot
I
of
think
that in
that that
school.
like I think that that is why friendships when you're young are really hard because you can sense the ick that you're getting from certain people at a young age, but you just don't know how to name it.
Mm,
And so you just kind of separate because you're
mhm,
like something feels off, but you don't know how to have that conversation because you don't know what it is that you're actually experiencing in that moment. And so to
mhm,
Karen's like original question of like how do we better prepare ourselves, I'm just thinking, and I know we may or may not get too deeply into this, but I'm just thinking about like the word investment and
mm,
like who we invest ourselves in, but like that again, I just keep coming back to these like moments of like parenting, right? So like Karen with your mom, my mom did a similar thing to me with another friend, and now I find myself on the peripheral of my oldest daughter's friendships, right? And one of the big things that's happening right now is that, and I love saying this with love and light, and people in my community who know me know this about me. So this is not something that is new to the people in my orbit, but like I can't with the birthday parties, and like part of that part of that is because
Oh,
everybody has to get invited to the
mhm,
birthday party.
yes.
mhm,
And it's like at what point though are we going to tell them that it is okay,
That's not the world.
right, that it is okay that you have a select group of friends who you want to attend this
Mm-hmm.
special day of your
mhm,
own, and so like is it that we're inviting everybody because we don't want to have that conversation with our children? Are we inviting everybody because we were once the person who wasn't invited and now we're projecting, right? So like
Mm.
having these conversations with our kids around birthday parties, I think is incredibly important. Brielle will tell you she did not get a birthday party this year. I was like, you're 12,
mhm,
we're done, right? We're not, I don't have the capacity, but also trying to teach her about the investment. And I know, Karen, you linked another article about like, therapy talk and toxic like friendships and stuff. But it is, I don't know, when I think about for another example of like our vow renewal, right? Like, do I have to go back and invite people from like 20 years ago who like,
mhm,
right? Like, it's like the
Yeah.
investment
Oof.
of my money, my energy, right? Um, Whatever, right? And to
Your
this
time. Yeah.
time, yeah, to be a part of this special ceremony that I want to hold with my family and share and celebrate with the people who are closest to me, I should be able to have autonomy over that. I
mhm,
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be, you know. Anyway, I don't
Dang,
know if I'm
Manny,
going
at
off
this
on
stage in our
the
lives, are you getting pressure
no,
from
no, no, I'm just saying,
mm,
I'm
okay.
just saying of
mhm.
like, I'm
Yeah,
thinking back at like people who invited me to their wedding who like hadn't talked to in like, decades, but you know,
Now, yeah, now you're questioning like, is there an obligation or
yeah, like how
something?
far back are we going? Like what is
Yeah.
the.
Ooh, that's tricky. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
That was
anyway, I
even
just
tricky for my wedding. Like, Like my
Yeah,
bridal
right?
party, that was hard.
Oof. Yeah,
Yeah.
the kids these days, the kids these days with like this new trend of like no, I don't know if it's a trend, but like you don't have the table with the bridal party and like it.
Mhm.
You're not creating that like clear line of like these are my best friends and then there's the rest of you. I think
Mhm.
that's so smart. Like who?
Smart, yeah.
Why did we do that?
Mm,
Why did we
mm,
make it a visual representation?
Because that line could have been. Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
It's like, where do you draw the line? It's
Yeah.
not, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
So
weddings,
this
man,
like
that's a whole
Mhm.
nother
That's a
episode.
whole.
but I
Oh,
feel
we
like
should jot
it's
this down.
ambiguous.
Ambiguous, yes.
Ambiguous.
Ambiguous, yes. Go
There
Ambiguous.
are
on.
so many. I just think that this is like such a nuanced subject matter,
It
you know?
Mhm.
is. It is. Well,
Mhm.
and even just through this conversation, it like we have taken a different path than I was contemplating when I was preparing for it. And I think that's fascinating. Like I like the perspective you've taken, Manny, of, at what point do these become less frequent or non-existent? I'm sure there's people in their lives who have had friendship breakups at this stage for
Mhm.
very good reason, but it's
Mhm.
definitely less often at this stage than when we were
Mhm.
younger.
Mhm.
And it's a good reminder to me to like put into words for my kiddo of, you know, how life is going to go and to have proper expectations and to be able to mourn the loss of those friends that he's sad to lose, and that's okay, and that is a little bit of life and you're going to experience these losses, but to like honor the time that you had with those friends, to make sure that you are grateful for like the things about you that they've given you, because we all learn from our friends. As much as I like to believe I'm going to be the sole influence on my child, he's getting much more influence from third parties, and so I think it's just a good reminder for me to be mindful of that with him and with his development, and make sure that he has better tools than I had, in preparing for those things. So,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think something Manny said that resonated with me too was the like you're talking about the investment, and like you said something about like when you're younger, that ick feeling that you have but you don't really know like how to manage that, and I just feel like I feel like I've said this phrase before, now that I'm 40, or like now, now that I'm older, now that I'm more mature, right? And so that kind of how you put it made me realize that when I started working as a teacher and I had all these people who were my age and we should be friends, we're all friends, but I was kind of like discerning. Had the I had the wherewithal and the
Mm,
psychological development to know that that's not really a friend, and but it doesn't mean
mm-hmm.
that I couldn't chit chat and we couldn't share stories of our students in our classrooms and like surface level, oh my gosh, my daughter just started saying no and stop. And I can tell those are not deeply personal stories that I can still communicate, but know that they're not going to get beyond a certain point with
Yeah.
me. And when you're younger, you don't have the wherewithal to say, I'm going to draw a line here, but we can still be in communication with one another. And
mm,
Yeah.
so when you're talking about like when you're coaching or when we're kind of supporting our kids as they head forward, it's almost like we have to know that they're not going to know how
mhm,
to and just be prepared to support them in that, but we can't tell them not to make all the
Right.
same mistakes because
Yeah.
they will get to a point where they know what's a true friend and what's not. And so we're going to have to like painfully watch them like
Yes.
divulge personal relation, stories, and then get blast all over school and whatever is going to happen.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. And just be there to,
be there to
yeah,
be like,
support
yeah,
them when they go through it.
when they go
That
through
is
it.
that's a real hard part of parenting.
Ugh.
Um, I'm sure we'll cover more parenting topics in the future. The one thing I wanted to kind of leave with is a teaser for a future episode. So as I was preparing for this one, there's a number of articles out there that talk about um, like the impact that social media is having
mhm,
on giving us terminology for our own mental needs. So, self-care, you hear a lot about self-care. And while this is great that we're much more conscious of this. It's like we are going way too far down that journey. And there was a quote in one of the articles I'll link about casting our friends as the antagonists of our own self-improvement journey. And so that takes us into, this toxic self-care trend, which we'll cover in a future episode. But I thought that was fascinating about
Me too.
we have to find the right balance of like making sure we're not antagonizing everybody in our orbit on our quote journey to like self-improvement. So little teaser for a future episode. Before
Love
we
it.
wrap up, any confessions from this discussion that we should wrap up with?
So I have two. One is we don't have a clear definition in society of an acquaintance and a friend. And until we begin to define that, this is going to spiral in my head and probably keep me up at night.
Sorry, girl.
The other is that while I thought this was going to be a conversation about friend breakups, this is actually a conversation about grief. And that grief is not solely about someone dying, it's about a lost placement. And that placement can be a memory of something, of a time, a particular time that you had with someone that you are not going to be able to relive or get back. And so maybe it isn't about the breakup, it's just about how we comfort ourselves in those moments of grief. And that grief can happen at any moment. And as a society, if we're talking about mental health, maybe the first step is to acknowledge our grief.
That reminds me of the Catherine Waters article. She says, she uses the term hug, HUG, and it's honor your feelings, unplug from the distractions, and grieve the loss. So actually just like making the space to feel those feelings and process them, before moving on. So I love that. I think the grief thing came up a lot as I was thinking about these breakups. And I feel like, as a confessional, I feel like I almost thought when I was young that I shouldn't, like, even if I'm the one who is like, I don't want to be friends with this person anymore, I wasn't allowed to feel sad about that because I was the one making that call, And I don't know, I probably just put that on myself, but it's nice to have this discussion and realize, like, even if I've decided that that person is not someone I want to continue to invest in, I can still feel sad that I don't have them around anymore, that I don't have that friendship I once had. And so again, just, a good reminder for me as a parent to like make sure that Maxwell knows he's allowed to feel his feelings, even if he is feeling like he caused them in some way.
Yeah. Love it. Great
Amazing.
combo,
Well, thank you, yes, for this therapy session this morning.
Yeah, I'm going to cancel my 12 o'clock.
And we will see you all next time.